Describing the world of Exodus and why it is so great is quite a tricky one, because in my own opinion there really isn't a game to compare it to. You can't really compare it to a game like Far Cry, nor even a linear one like Call of Duty. Although there is one small game you probably have forgotten about, which I'm probably going to make a video about someday because it's underrated. It's underrated, come on, it's not that bad. So I would simply begin by talking about the easiest part to understand on why the world is so good. And that is the graphics. The graphics look good. Except they actually don't. If you actually get up close, you can quite easily tell that the game is 5 years old. But it is when you just take a step back and observe, it suddenly becomes extremely beautiful. And that's because of one simple key thing: art style. The reason why a game like Half-Life 2, Portal 2, Team Fortress 2 look so good still is because they were more focused on having a good art style and not the sheer amount of polygons and pixels like so many more games, which do age quite badly. It's also something that the other Metro games have in common, that great art style they all share. There's something quite beautiful about looking at a weapon and you can tell, yeah, that's the Metro franchise. Moving on from the art style, we also have the world design itself, which I teased was the harder part to talk about, because it is so unique. This is one of, if not the only open world game that I have played, except for Elden Ring of course, that I fully explored or at least tried to. But Exodus is quite unique. It is the only game that I've ever played in my entire life that once I replayed it and replayed it again and again and again, I always, every single time, accidentally or not, explored as much as I could again, and it was always fun. The reason why begins by its size. Exodus consists of multiple, much smaller worlds than most normal open world games have. One of them is so small that it's not even an open world one. Now, being small should in theory be a bad thing, it's less content. But instead, what it is that they have taken about 20 to 30% from open world games like Far Cry and just have the 30% and not all the filler. And that makes sure that you never get bored and leaves you wanting more, which is the best thing a game can do. But size is not the only thing, because despite it being so small, a lot of times it's actually very empty. And that leads me to the second reason, which I also believe to be the most important one: pacing. That was the key thing I realized, because despite this game being a open world, the way you get to each open world, and in those open worlds there are classic Metro style linear missions. And those are very fun because how good the foundation and core gameplay is. But they are, without a doubt, my least favorite parts, except for the Dead City mission because of the extremely good atmosphere that I haven't seen any other games rival, to my knowledge at least. The thing that all the linear missions lacked were the quiet moments. Not quiet moments where you are forced to slowly follow someone or wait for them or talk to them. The quiet moments I'm referring to are those where you could be scavenging for resources on your own and choosing where you scavenge for them, cleaning or modifying your guns, recharging your flashlight, checking for radiation, checking the map, and checking for monsters and other enemies. What makes these quiet moments so special for me and so good is that all the things I listed could usually happen all at once, but I never really noticed because it all feels so natural. So I'm always doing something whilst never realizing it, and that's one of the main reasons it never gets boring despite it being so empty. And these quiet moments can really make you appreciate all the graphics and art style, and more importantly, it adds to the pacing. Because you spend so much time not fighting many enemies, when you do get into those fights, they always have much more of an impact and are much more memorable. Gameplay is most of the time the most important component in a game, so you might wonder where immersion comes in. Well, this game is the most immersive game I have played, and that is due to the gameplay. And I think the best place to show you why is to simply compare screenshots. Here is Metro Exodus, and here is this monstrosity that is coming this year very soon. If you can't already tell, the first major thing is the UI. In Exodus, the UI is very limited, which leaves more space on the screen for you to, play the game and see what the hell is going on. But the reason they can have it so small is because they have some small and pretty clever tricks. If you want to know how much ammo you have or what guns you have on you, you simply hold tab and it shows you. It also shows you how much ammo you have when you reload, and then it fades away so it doesn't take up space. To let you know how much health you have, it simply gets more red the more you are hurt and your heartbeat becomes louder. But there is more. Your flashlight and or night vision will eventually run out of power, so you need to constantly be checking how much power it has left, and you need to, with your recharge tool, keep on pumping it to keep the power on. And that also applies when you're checking your map, inventory, etc. It's always real time, unpausable, so you always need to make sure that you are aware of your surroundings. There's an excellent Game Maker's Tool video about this very topic, and they basically say that one of the reasons why this game is so immersive is all the things that would usually be in the menus and taking you out of the game are instead keeping you in the game. They made the map physical, they made the crafting and inventory system physical, and I would highly recommend that you watch that video. But Exodus gameplay is much more, and there are three important pillars: weapons, enemy design, and movement. First we have weapons, and there is not much I can say about it because it's good. All the weapons look, sound and feel powerful and very satisfying to use. And they are maybe better than most current huge AAA first person shooters. But when it comes to the enemies and movement, then oh boy, I do have some stuff to say about that. Exodus does have a pretty diverse cast of enemies, from the normal humans, the watchers, mutant spiders, shrimp, giant catfish, demons, lurkers, blind gorillas, and humamimals, although they are just zombies. The problem is that on paper, it has a very diverse pool of enemies, but it is so heavily dominated by fighting the zombies over and over and over again. But they are fun the first few times, but when entire missions revolve around only fighting zombies and not a single other type of enemy, it kinda starts to feel a bit boring. The spiders, who have a really cool feature surrounding the use of your flashlight, are only found in one mission and another section. The blind gorillas only appear in the Dead City, although when it comes to demons, watchers and lurkers, they are still present in the open world and can often create very fun and dynamic situations. But in the linear missions, you will basically only encounter zombies or humans. Despite of it all, it never gets boring. It's always fun to fight them, even if it starts to feel a bit too much repetition. It's always fun in the end. I just wish they could have toned it back a little bit with the zombies. And finally, we have movement, which was criticized for how slow and floaty your character feels. And they aren't wrong, but I personally only found it to be problematic when you are moving through tight space or railings, and even then it never really bothered me that much. I actually really like the slow movement when you are in the open world. It makes the small worlds feel much larger. And all that leaves us with describing my feelings towards the story is quite a hard one because it does so much right. All of your companions and characters around you, including your wife, is likable and charming. One of my favorite parts of the game are when you're just on the train. This might be the only game, to my knowledge, that handles being married without it being bad or boring and actually making you care for your wife. And the ending, or I guess in this case endings, are very touching and are excellent and sets up the next game beautifully. But there is one big flaw, maybe two or three, but there is one big that keeps the game from ever having a great story and instead makes it a good one. And that is your main character. To explain why, I'd like to mention another game, Red Dead Redemption 2. The game is one of my favorites of all time and does so many things so right that it's absurd how good it is. And one of those things is the story. The game's plot is very simple, but it is the characters that make the story so compelling. And that especially includes the main protagonist and character, Arthur Morgan, and he is my favorite fictional character of any media of all time. Exodus is all that, but they made Arthur Morgan a silent protagonist. I think you might see where my main problem lies. Silent characters can and do work when it fits the story, and it did in the previous Metro games. But like Red Dead 2, the Exodus story is deeply personal for a main character, with Artyom's wife literally being on the cups of dying during the story, needing him and her father / your commander to search for a cure, leading to his death and your own in the bad ending. When all your character does as she collapses is just heavy breathing, or in the best case a grunt, it's silly, it takes you out of the story, and it makes him not feel real. The big reason it bothers me so much is because he actually does have character and speaks quite a lot, but there is a big catch.
I can't say I've ever been religious, but right now I'm begging all gods, please, watch over Anna and make the valley cure her of her affliction.
It's only in the loading screens, and what hurts so much is that so often these small glimpses of what could have been a good character, maybe even a great one, they had a voice actor, they had some sort of characterization, they did not take the full measure. Hell, in both DLCs, the main character has a voice, and it easily shows why it is superior, and especially in the Two Colonels one, which is a simple but quite deeply personal story. But Artyom being silent leads to even more problems, like how conversations often become very awkward as they have to answer for you.
So, how do you like it out here after the tunnels? Freedom, huh? Sure thing.
You quite often get in trouble just because you chose not to speak, even though it's pointless to not speak. Another problem with the story is dialogue. The dialogue itself is not bad and often quite good, but there are often long pauses which make them feel artificial.
So, you've never seen any foreign army in this area?
No, I haven't seen any army. But we haven't really been to any important places.
I see.
And another problem is the length. The length becomes a problem because all you do is just stand there and often not say much or anything if you're Artyom, and these dialogues can and do go on for minutes. What does carry the story are the fun and good characters around you, the excellent ending which beautifully sets up the next game. It's a pretty good story, but not a great one. Exodus does also have 2 DLCs, and they are a must-buy. The first one, and the shortest one, is the Two Colonels, which takes you between 1 and 2 hours to complete, and thus I recommend you to play it through one session. It is a prequel and fleshes out the story of the metro station you visit in the last mission. It's a really simple but effective one about a father, or in this case a colonel, trying to protect his son, just like your commander and Colonel Miller does with his daughter. It's a tragic story and makes the already excellent ending even more touching. Gameplay wise, it's one big linear mission, but unlike most of the linear missions, it is just as good as the open world for several reasons. For one, because the story and presentation is so good, it works as a motivation for the character you are playing, and thus for you. It's also just really cool to visit a metro station, and even cooler to contrast it with how it all looks when Artyom and Miller finds it. But the best thing about the DLC is the ending. But if you're looking for more Exodus in the DLC, the game does provide it with Sam's story. That one is between 6 and 10 hours depending on how slowly you play it, and it takes place after the ending and is about your companion Sam, who travels to Vladivostok to go back home to USA in hope of finding his father. I would say it's just more Exodus, and that is a good thing because Exodus is damn fun. In the end, there's not much more I can say. It is a beautiful game with immersive gameplay, excellent gunplay, and with a pretty good story with some flaws that I wish weren't there. I've spent much of my time complaining, but that's just because I love this game so much and I want the next one to improve upon it, and I think they can and will. As of the future, I look forward to the upcoming VR title, and I also look forward to the next mainline Metro game. So thank you for watching.